All right, the RP show continues on a Monday. Talking hockey. And I guess I got to throw in the plug again for Overtime Hockey Lanes in Calgary. It's an amusement park for hockey players. I said it, not them. But go check it out if you haven't yet, especially all you teams on a road trip. Let's bring in Dave Dawson now. We're going to talk about, try to make some sense of the NCAA Junior Hockey Wars. Hey, David. Matthew Decker has written in, just so you know, before we get off the ground, he goes, the unofficial color commentator on the road for the Fort McMurray Oil Barons and spokesperson for the Family Fun Balloons. Excellent choice to talk about the NCAA CHL rule change. You've called AJ games, WHL games, and I don't even know how far we need to go into this, other than for those uninitiated, NCAA has now declared all junior hockey players are eligible to play college hockey. Boom. Chaos ensues. How's it look from your perspective?
Chaos ensues for sure, Roddy. And I remember when the ruling came down, we were at the Rocky Mountain Classic, which was one of the U15 premier showcases on the calendar. It was a couple weeks ago in November, and it was in the Hockey Canada office of all places, doing some interviews, and ended up bringing on some agents and Dan Neer, the Western Hockey League new commissioner, and chatted with them. And I asked all of them, I said, is this kind of one of those moments in hockey that, you know, when you think given the world, everybody remembers where they were, you know, September 11th, 2001. Everybody kind of remembers where they were. COVID-19 pandemic comes down. I said, in the hockey world, is this one of those landscape shifting moments you're going to remember where you were? And they all kind of said, well, there's a lot of cards left to be played out, but so far certainly seems to be that way. It's been just a monumental landscape changing announcement over the last couple of weeks.
Tell me why. I don't know if I have time for viewer questions because I got a million for you. And again, I've been following your Twitter feed. You've been really on top of this. What does this specifically mean for the BCHL? Like, what's going on out there? Again, if you don't know, it's too late to get caught up now. Google it. But they left Hockey Canada and the CJHL to do their own thing, right? And then 5 Alberta teams defected to join the BC League because they thought it would be better for themselves and the players. And now that's looking like a bad decision. What can you tell me about that?
Yeah, and it's funny. I think in a lot of ways, I have kind of been put on the pedestal as public enemy number one of the BCHL. I don't know how that happened or who decided that ultimately was going to be it. But when all that news came down last year, the 5 Alberta teams were leaving, and word kind of came down the pipeline in the fall that Ryan Papuano with the Brooks Bandits, wasn't overly happy with the direction the AJHL was going with the interlock. And there had been talks of a Super League for quite a while, right? So Ryan Papuano of the Brooks Bandits, an incredible hockey mind, great person. He was kind of the catalyst of this, leaving to go to the BCHL because of outside the parameters of the CJHL. A number of the things that, he wasn't happy with, namely, if you're under 18, you can't recruit players outside of the province. They have to have a family member living there. So it was one of the things that had always irked some of those teams. And so, yeah, the 5 teams left and created a rift in the hockey world. And, a lot of the terminology that was coming around, is this the end of the AJHL? They should just join the SJHL. And what a disaster. How are they even going to survive? Will they even finish the season? And, information like that came around, and, those teams left and went to the BCHL. And at that time, seemed like it was greener pastures. It seemed like a shifting moment. But in the back of everyone's minds, everybody had always been hearing about the CHL NCAA relationship, that had this ruling that likely was probably, Roddy, of 12 to 18 months down the road, right? So the BCHL had a little bit of grace, so to speak, to really create this Super League, ultimately what they've been trying to do. And it, that's the one thing, the one card they had was being a league that would just pump out NCAA scholarships nonstop. That is the premier league to do it. And hey, make no bones about it, BCHL Junior A is the best in Canada. It is. It's been the top for a long time. So that had been the spot. If you wanted an NCAA Division I scholarship, your Penn States, your Boston Universities, Denver, etc., that's where you would go, is to go to the BCHL. And then all of a sudden, this ruling comes down, and now we're seeing an exodus of players leaving the BCHL to come not only to the CHL, but it's CJHL as well. So for the BCHL, I think, when this ruling came down for them, I think it might have been a little earlier than expected. They had imagined it might have been a year down the road. So in a lot of ways, it does kind of look like the BCHL is kind of caught, not with their tail between their legs, so to speak, but just they're trying to play catch up right now and go, okay, how do we respond to this?
Why are they mad at you?
So I'm a freelancer. I do a lot of work for the AJHL, obviously HNLive, different clients here or there. And primarily, I've had a great relationship with the AJHL for a long time. So when the news came down, somebody in the BCHL leaked it to an employee of the AJHL, a play-by-play guy, who then puts it on Twitter, and he gets a lot of retweets. So, I'd run it up the flagpole to the AJHL and said, hey, is this information correct? They said, yeah, it's correct. Okay, cool. So I have kind of become an advocate, a partner of the AJHL, and I'm proud to, be an ally of them. I do a lot of work for them, as you mentioned off the opening, color commentator this year, somewhat of the Fort McMurray Oil Barons. I've done a lot of different, work for them over the years. I kind of took the stance of saying, okay, well, if the greener pastures are the BCHL, let's see what the fan base thinks. Because, as you know, Roddy, in the SJHL, for example, your small town junior A hockey, that's the thing to do on a Friday, Saturday night. Like, fans go, they get behind the team. If your local so-and-so player from Melfort happens to make the team, you want to go see him, right? So I thought to myself, okay, well, I know where the attendance figures are for some of these teams. I wonder what the fans are going to think, because the ones paying the bills, paying for the admission, ultimately are going to have a say in whether they support it or not. So I just started putting information out there on Twitter about some of the attendance figures, and they had kind of started to decline a little bit. And there were a number of reasons why. It was springtime. There was a lot going on. I got some pushback for that, but I think at that point in time was probably when, a lot of BCHL people put me up on their dartboard and said, this guy's the enemy. So
I hope you're okay with it. I'm used to, I'm on a lot of dartboards around the world. I don't really care. But the one thing is, people need to understand, the viewers that don't know, even the hockey people that do, I'm not sure there's any right answer to this. I mean, I was in Vancouver last week, because there's so many different perspectives. It depends what side you're on. You tell me if you think this is right, Dave. Hockey guy said to me, somebody I respect, NHL scout, he goes, this is the way it should have always been. Tier 1, Tier 2. Tier 3, if you want to go Junior B, Junior C. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think, Rod, the big component for me is, and when one of the agents had mentioned this to me in early November during an interview, he said, the hardest thing is sitting a child and parents down when the kid is age 14 and says, you need to make a decision on where the future of your hockey life is going. Is it going to go junior A or major junior? Does he want to go NCAA, or does he want to play major junior and then go to U Sport? So that's a difficult decision to make at 14 and 15 years old, because, as you know, in the Western Canada, the Western Hockey League, under 15 is when you're draft eligible. So if you get drafted, you've made your decision. So, in a lot of ways, that's hard to do. I can think of myself at 14 and 15. Good grief, Rod. 35, I'm making bonehead decisions in my life. 40, I'm 45. I'm still making bad decisions. At 14 years old, to have to make a decision and go, where's the future of your life headed? That's a hard thing to do. So I think you're right in a lot of ways. This is the right way to do it. I think that you should have options of go, okay, I want to play NCAA. I can still play a couple years of major junior because maybe grandpa's getting sick, or, mom's got cancer. So I want to stay here and spend those 2 years and play. And then I know I want to get a great education so I can go south of the border and get that. I think it's the right way to go. I really do think there's a lot of great minds in the BCHL that I think, if they had a little bit of time, can prepare for what they're going to do as the next steps. But certainly what you're seeing right now is a kind of, wow, I don't think we expected this to come as quickly as it did.
No. And I wonder if they're regretting breaking away from Hockey Canada the way that they did. But I just to clarify, I wasn't the one that said this is the way it should have always been. I'm just relaying it from a hockey person. But I think he's right, and I think you agree. And that's going to piss people off. that this is the way it should have always been. But now there's no decision to be made for the best players. There's no decision they got to make. So there's another reason why this is actually a good thing. But Dave, unless you have anything else, I got to run. We're out of time. But any final thoughts on this that we didn't cover?
No, Roddy, I think that, going forward, there's still a lot of chips to be played. People are talking, hey, are Brooks and Penticton, are they going to apply to join the Western Hockey League? What's going on there? And, there's still so many cards that haven't fallen yet and chips that haven't fallen yet. So this, I think, is going to take time, years to really play itself out. But I'm not, I want to get this publicly out there. I'm not opposed to the BCHL. I love the BCHL. I think it's great hockey. So if I'm on your dartboard, leave me there. I can't control that. But I'm just a fan of people working together, and it's about the kids. It's not about you. It's about the kids.
Should be. David, I appreciate the time, man. Keep on keeping on.
Appreciate it, brother. Thanks as always, Roddy.
Alberta broadcaster Dave Dawson. We'll be right back with a overtime right after this. Live on the Game Plus TV network, streaming live on YouTube and podcasting wherever you enjoy your podcast.